Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Well, let's get started by looking now squarely at the ICT space. And just ahead of the week that starts on the 20th September, the ICT week, where they're looking at regional imperatives for digital transformation post-COVID-19, we want to look at it too. And so we're joined this morning by the Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Unit in Rodney Taylor, Barbadian, and also the Honorable Melford Nicholas, who's the Minister of Information, Broadcasting, Telecommunications and Information Technology with the government of Antigua and Barbuda. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning, Pearson.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with you, Mr. Nicholas, because you sit at that stage where governments determine strategy. What has been the discussion like about ICT in the region and those challenges that we need to overcome?
This particular initiative goes back to 2017 in Guyana, when the National Basics Intercession Meeting at CARICOM did adopt a strategy for stabilizing the Caribbean. And out of that, CTO, of which I'm the president, would have been charged with the responsibility of developing the work packages to enable CARICOM member states ahead with this whole digital agenda. The single ICT space is the digital arm of the Caribbean single market army. That really translates into what are those discrete and concrete steps that individual state governments are going to have to undertake to be able to ensure their whole public enterprise is digitally transformed, and where that is accomplished in each of those find modalities of collaboration and functional cooperation to ensure that all of us join up our efforts such that we are being able to integrate our digital platforms and to be able to share information and to collaborate effectively. Again, this was given an impetus, if you would, as a result of a number of events deal with extreme weather conditions in the Caribbean, but more recently and more comprehensively, that came with the pandemic that we're now experiencing.
You do recognize, of course, that we are all little islands in this one pond, and though we are all relatively similar, we are also vastly different. And so how do you see it from your position as a member of government and as a member of CARICOM, how we integrate that technology so that we can all trade better among ourselves? How do you see that happening, and what's been the progress thus far?
Well, there's some individual in-country steps that have to be taken. Coming from colonialism, we have inherited pretty much paper-driven bureaucracies, and accordingly, the real for state governments is to find the resources, both human and capital, to be able to feed into this new regime. Clearly, the technology, and it's a question now of how much resources, scarce as they may be at this particular point in time, how many of the resources are at the level to ensure that the networks, the infrastructure that government needs in order to have all of its agencies and governments and ministries that what resources are made available such that the applications that will be required within state agencies and government, so that they are digitally and functionally capable of operating on these networks. And of course, the retraining of the vast amount of public to be able to deliver services digitally over this new platform. That is a responsibility that is placed in each government. But of course, we also have the need for collaborating across the region. And one such that comes clearly to mind, it's what we're now with the electronic cards that we found necessary to implement to be able to have some humanless contact as a result of COVID as persons move through our ports of entry. This would also mean that there are several things that have to be done in country as well with respect to some of our registries, to include our citizens registry that will actually keep a record, a digital record, a digital identity of all our citizens. I have to say that several states have made some progress, of which I can include Jamaica and Barbados, and to a lesser extent, my own country in Antigua. But it is an imperative for all of us to be able to do. When we're able to achieve that, it would mean that our citizens to move freely across CARICOM, and it will equip governments and state agencies to be able to effectively accommodate the free of our citizens as is envisaged by the single market and economy regime.
Rodney, you come into play with the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, providing the platform upon which all of this happens. Are we ready? What is our capacity?
Well, yeah, it is our job. Thank you, Pearson. It is our job to ensure that we build capacity within the region. So the President Nicholas sits at the apex of the structure of the CTU as President of the General Conference of Ministers. That is the highest decision-making body of the region. We serve as the Secretariat, and we execute on the strategic plan of the CTU, right? That includes capacity building, so training. It includes awareness building. So as we go from country to country, we have an initiative called the Caribbean ICT Roadshow that builds awareness of the power of technology and how it can transform governments. We also have, and the society at large. We also have an initiative called 21st Century Governments, which is, of course, to bring governments into the modern age of delivering public services using digital platforms. You would well be aware as well of the single ICT space. We are making progress on that. One of the key deliverables is the elimination of roaming charges within the space. Negotiations have started and are ongoing, and we expect to conclude those very shortly. But those are just some of the things that we're doing: awareness building, capacity building, and the implementation of the single ICT space.
They say you shouldn't let a good crisis go to waste, and so therefore coming out of that crisis, we want to be able to see fast improvement. We've all been pushed in all of our activities onto the digital platforms, and so how much of it is putting the customer at the center of it? How much of it is about shifting the way our thinking? How are you going to be able to get organizations and governments really to adjust how they view the way we do business? How challenging is that?
It is a challenge for sure, and it has driven us, the pandemic, as the minister pointed out, has driven us because I've done some regional travel since coming here, and I've seen our governments now requiring advance notification. So you need approval to enter, you need to submit your vaccination certificate, you need to submit your PCR test before arrival. Before this pandemic, many of these countries did not have any such systems that would allow for this kind of advanced notification uploading. There was the paper-based immigration entry departure form. Some of them still do have it. And so it's the case for public services, whether it's the police certificate of character, the appointments at the polyclinics and all of those things. It's not so much a question of if people want to or if governments want to. The fact is we have to, because in many cases it's the only way that we can effectively deliver these public services. And that's why the awareness part is important, so that people understand the benefit of it. But to a large extent, they're already experiencing this type of service from companies such as Amazon and Google that are digitally based to start with. So there's a growing expectation, especially from the younger generation, that this is how we want to interact with government and with businesses generally.
Mr. Nicholas, companies in the region and companies outside of the region are also crying for ease of doing business, the access to the possibility that they can set up their companies wherever and get business done in the region. How are governments in the region facilitating that through technology today?
Yes, and thank you for asking that, because it is the center of the consideration, and that we are able to draw benefit at the end of the day. Because if we continue to expend scarce government resources and they're not the contemporary benefits to be able to demonstrate to both the stakeholders and indeed our consumers, then it becomes a pointless exercise. The ease of index, which is tracked by the World Bank every year for approximately 190 countries, is a good basis on which to mark ourselves, because that index measures three things. It looks at a small to medium enterprise, the establishment of a small to medium enterprise jurisdiction, and makes a determination how easy it is for that business to be able to become registered, to be able to be pay taxes, be able to get electricity, to be able to acquire property, how easy it is for you to trade across your borders, and that sort of stuff. And so there are approximately individual metrics within that whole program that we are allowed, we are perhaps evaluate on an annual basis. We're allowed to do some self-evaluation, but again, our relative position in our index is related to the way other countries in global environment is set up. And it gives an individual country a competitive position. The better you improve that index, it will give the investment community an indication of what to expect. So quite recently here in Antigua, our approval process for construction of buildings or modification of buildings, our development control authority, with the assistance of Compete Caribbean, we have just completed the automation and the digitalization of that particular function. This, of course, will show up its performance in approximately 18 months as we work through the basis of ensuring that each and every one of the stakeholders become conversant with the platform and begin to use it and derive benefit. The same would have been true for our border control systems, and of course our customs and exchange. We had implemented the Secure the World platform some 4 years ago, and we continue to make these strides. So across the board, what is true for Antigua is also true for Barbados and Guyana, and for all the other CARICOM member states. It is a long-term approach that we have to do. Significant resources have to be allocated. I would think not less than 3% of the GDP is required in countries to be able to make these vast transformations. And the fortunate thing is that we have the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, who in 2018 defined the 21st century government model, and it is that model we are each pursuing in our own individual way. So this is a welcome CTU, and I'm happy that during my tenure it comes to an end at the start of this next meeting. Each of the presidents are allowed to serve consecutive terms, so I'll have this at the end of this particular term. But I'm happy that during that period of time we're able to not only establish the 21st century government model, but we have begun to pursue it in individual countries, and we have, in the process of time, we will and be able to establish a league table where each of our member states can then benchmark ourselves against the other, adopt common practices, best practices, and avoid pitfalls that the preceding jurisdiction would have encountered along the way of implementation of the strategy.
Well, that sounds really good. I think it brings a bit of relief to a lot of people watching this morning, and knowing the challenges we have alone with connectivity alone. And I know, Rodney, we still challenge you on that to find a way that we can do whatever we do cheaply and also at very good quality as well. But gentlemen, we have to leave it right there. But thank you so very much for joining us this morning. Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, Rodney Taylor, and the Honourable Melford Nicholas, who is the Minister of Information, Broadcasting, Telecommunications and Information Technology with the Government of Antigua and Barbuda. Gentlemen, thank you. Just ahead of your week, which starts on the 20th. Best of luck with the activities. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We'll take a break here and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning.